Good teams find ways to win. Bad teams find ways to lose. But what the Cleveland Browns did on Sunday, that was something entirely different. Something far more alarming. Because this wasn't just a loss. It wasn't even just another embarrassing chapter in a franchise that has practically built a museum of disappointment since 1999. This was the kind of collapse that exposes everything wrong inside an organization. The coaching, the discipline, the preparation, and the decision-making. And right in the middle of that mess stood a rookie quarterback who actually did his job. Shedeur Sanders stepped into brutal weather, a battered roster, and an offensive game plan that looked like it was written for someone else entirely. And he still delivered a clean performance. 16 of 25, 149 yards, a touchdown, 0 turnovers, a 93.6 passer rating in winds strong enough to carry the ball sideways across Lake Erie. That alone should have kept Cleveland competitive. But the Browns didn't just lose, they imploded, and Sanders had nothing to do with it. Every time he built momentum, the coaching staff slowed the game down. Every time he moved the chains, the play calling forced him backward. Every time he made the right decision, the team around him found a way to erase it. Special teams mistakes, predictable schemes, fourth down disasters, and a head coach who somehow believed a tight end taking a direct snap was a better option than letting his rookie quarterback lead. So, before anyone blames Shedeur Sanders, let's tell the real story. The one Cleveland doesn't want to look at too closely. Before anyone rushes to judgment about Shedeur Sanders, let's start with the one thing that never lies in the NFL, the numbers. Not the scoreboard, that was a product of chaos. Not the talking heads on social media. Most of them didn't even watch the full game. The numbers behind Sanders' actual performance tell a story that should embarrass anyone blaming him for this loss. 16 completions on 25 attempts, 149 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, a 93.6 passer rating. For a second career start, in freezing winds whipping across the field at 36 miles per hour, against a playoff team known for swallowing rookie quarterbacks whole, that's not good enough. That's impressive. That's steady. That's exactly what you ask from a young quarterback trying to build momentum in a hostile environment. And yet Cleveland walked away with only 8 points. How does a quarterback deliver efficiency, protect the football, and score your only touchdown, and still walk off the field looking like he was part of the problem? Because the reality is painfully simple. Sanders wasn't the issue. The infrastructure around him was crumbling from the moment the ball was kicked off. The offensive line couldn't hold together long enough for routes to develop. The play calling rarely matched the moment. There was no quick game, no tempo, no adjustment to the weather, no creativity to counter a 49ers defense that lives on disruption. Sanders did his job. Everyone around him made his job harder. Even when he delivered, like the 34-yard touchdown just before halftime, the momentum evaporated within minutes because of miscues on special teams or baffling coaching decisions. Sanders didn't create Cleveland's problems. He inherited them. That's why looking at the box score alone doesn't tell the truth. The real story is hidden underneath, a rookie quarterback performing with poise while the rest of the organization unraveled around him. If you want to understand why Cleveland's offense looked lifeless, predictable, and painfully outdated, you have to start with one person, Kevin Stefanski. Because Shedeur Sanders didn't walk into a broken offense. He walked into an offense Stefanski made broken. Here's the part that should infuriate every Browns fan. Sanders thrives in tempo. At Colorado, when the offense pushed the pace, when the ball snapped quickly, when defenses didn't have time to breathe, Sanders looked electric. He processed faster. He threw with rhythm. He kept defenses on their heels. So what did Stefanski do? He slowed the game to a crawl. Instead of letting Sanders use pace to neutralize the 49ers pass rush, Stefanski called long developing plays behind an offensive line that couldn't hold a block for more than 2 seconds. Instead of dialing up quick hits, slants, screens, outs, anything to get the ball out fast, he forced Sanders into predictable, slow reads that required protection Cleveland simply couldn't give him. That's not just a bad decision. That's ignoring the identity of your quarterback. And then came the sequence that perfectly summarized Stefanski's entire offensive philosophy. Run on first down, run on second down, then ask your rookie quarterback to convert third and long in a snowstorm against one of the most disciplined defenses in football. Over and over, Stefanski called drives that boxed Sanders into a corner and expected him to bail the team out. That's not coaching. That's hoping. And hope isn't a game plan. The most baffling part? Stefanski is supposed to be an offensive coach, the one area where Cleveland should look organized. Instead, he looked outmatched, out-schemed, and unwilling to adapt to the moment. He coached Sunday's game like he had an all-pro line and a veteran quarterback, not a rookie behind a shaky unit in brutal weather. Sanders didn't play a perfect game. He held the ball too long a few times, but he wasn't put in positions where success was likely. When a play caller refuses to adjust to his personnel or the conditions, the quarterback always looks worse than he really is. And in Cleveland's case, that was only the beginning. If there was one unit that exposed Cleveland more than anything else on Sunday, it was the offensive line, a group that looked overwhelmed from the opening whistle. And while every quarterback deals with pressure, what Shedeur Sanders faced wasn't normal adversity. It was structural failure. From the first quarter onward, the 49ers' defensive front treated Cleveland's line like a revolving door. Bull rushes knocked linemen backward. Edge rushers screamed off the corner untouched. Interior pressure collapsed the pocket before Sanders could even complete his drop. And the worst part? It wasn't a surprise. Everyone knew this unit had been struggling for weeks. Yet Stefanski called plays like the line was elite. Instead of giving Sanders quick rhythm throws, he asked him to sit in the pocket for deep developing routes. Instead of using tempo to reduce pressure, he slowed the offense down and let San Francisco tee off. Every snap felt like a race between Sanders' decision-making and the defense's ability to break through the line. And the defense kept winning. Now, critics will point to the 3 sacks and say Sanders held the ball too long. Sure, on a couple plays his internal clock wasn't perfect. But let's be real, even a veteran quarterback would have struggled behind that kind of protection. When you take the snap and immediately see jerseys in your face, it's not about mechanics or patience, it's survival. And somehow, Sanders still didn't panic. He didn't force throws. He didn't create turnovers. He played controlled football in a situation designed to make him look chaotic. That alone should have been enough for Stefanski to adjust, shorten the playbook, speed up the tempo, protect the quarterback through design rather than hope. But adjustments never came. The offensive line didn't just struggle, it compromised every drive. Long down and distance situations became inevitable. Sanders was forced to navigate collapsing pockets on nearly every throw, and while he fought to keep the offense alive, the structure around him kept falling apart. And the most infuriating part? The line's weakness wasn't new. It's been a season-long issue, one Stefanski still hasn't solved. If the offensive line buried Cleveland in trouble, the special teams unit shoved them even deeper into the ground. What happened on Sunday wasn't bad luck. It wasn't one unfortunate bounce. It was a complete collapse, the kind of meltdown that instantly flips a winnable game into a guaranteed loss. And the worst part? Every mistake came at the worst possible moment. The first disaster struck with Gage Larvin's muffed punt. A routine return, a simple catch, the kind of play every NFL team executes hundreds of times a season. But instead of securing the ball, Larvin hesitated. He let the ball bounce, misjudged the angle, and watched it graze off his hands like a slow-motion nightmare. Suddenly, San Francisco was gifted possession deep in Cleveland territory, and they cashed in with ease. That wasn't bad field position. That was a hand-delivered touchdown. Then came the second catastrophe, the Harold Fannin Jr. fumble on the fourth down trick play. To be clear, that call should have never happened. A tight end taking a snap under center is risky even in perfect weather. Add in freezing temperatures and a defensive front loaded with athletes, and it becomes reckless. Predictably, the ball hit the ground, the 49ers pounced, and another short field became another touchdown. 2 special teams errors, 14 points, all on a silver platter. And that's the part fans can't stomach. The 49ers didn't march methodically down the field. They didn't out-strategize Cleveland on long drives. They capitalized on Cleveland's lack of discipline, preparation, and fundamentals, symptoms of coaching failure rather than player failure. But the meltdown didn't stop there. Coverage lanes broke down repeatedly, giving San Francisco momentum and favorable field position. The Browns looked disorganized, unfocused, and unprepared in every phase of special teams. These weren't isolated mistakes. This was a pattern. The same pattern that has haunted Cleveland all season. A lack of sharpness, a lack of accountability, a lack of urgency. And while Shedeur Sanders fought for every yard on offense, the special teams unit erased his efforts in minutes. For all the chaos swirling around him, the collapsing offensive line, the conservative play calling, the special teams imploding like a bad magic trick, Shedeur Sanders stood in the middle of it all and refused to break. And that alone tells you more about his future than the final score ever could. Because while Cleveland unraveled around him, Sanders delivered something this franchise hasn't seen in years: stability. He finished the game completing 16 of 25 passes. He protected the football. He read the field. He stayed calm in conditions that would have rattled quarterbacks twice his age. No panic throws, no reckless decisions, no rookie meltdowns. Instead, you saw flashes of exactly why his teammates have gravitated to him since the moment he stepped into the huddle. Poise, command, and quiet confidence. That 34-yard touchdown to Harold Fannin Jr., it wasn't a lucky throw. It was anticipation, timing, pocket management, and trust. Sanders stepped up, kept his eyes downfield despite pressure closing in, and dropped the ball exactly where it needed to be. In a game full of Cleveland mistakes, that play stood out like a lighthouse in a storm. It showed what he can be when the people around him do their jobs. But here's what makes this even more impressive. Sanders wasn't just fighting the 49ers defense. He was also fighting the limitations of his own offense. The slow tempo, the predictable play calls, the constant third and long situations created by failed run plays or protection breakdowns. Most rookies crumble under that kind of pressure. He didn't. He extended plays with his legs when he had to. He checked into safer throws when the pocket started to collapse. He refused to put the ball in harm's way even when the game's momentum begged him to force something. And yet, somehow, the national conversation still wonders if he should keep the starting job. What more does the kid need to show? He outplayed Dylan Gabriel's entire 6-game sample in just 2 starts. He showed more composure than some of Cleveland's veteran quarterbacks have shown in years. The reality is clear. Sanders isn't the reason the Browns are losing. He's the reason they're not losing by more. At some point, it stops being a bad game, a bad break, or a bad matchup. At some point, the mistakes begin forming a pattern. And in Cleveland, that pattern leads straight to Kevin Stefanski. Because what happened against the 49ers wasn't an isolated coaching misstep. It was the latest chapter in a long, frustrating cycle of predictable play calling, conservative decisions, and developmental failure. And fans have seen this story before. Look at the offensive approach. A young quarterback who thrives in tempo gets saddled with one of the slowest-paced offenses in the league. A struggling offensive line gets asked to hold blocks for long developing plays. A rookie who needs rhythm, quick throws, and confidence-building drives gets dropped into third and long sequences over and over like it's some sort of weekly ritual. This isn't adapting to a roster. This is forcing a roster to adapt to a stubborn, outdated philosophy. Then there's the fourth down decisions. Stefanski didn't just take the ball out of Shedeur Sanders' hands. He handed it to a tight end who barely practices under center. On a freezing day, against an elite defensive front. That's not analytics. That's ego disguised as creativity, and it cost Cleveland momentum, points, and eventually the game itself. But the deeper issue is what these decisions reveal: a long-term inability to elevate his quarterbacks. It happened with Baker Mayfield. A promising rookie season followed by stagnation. It happened with Deshaun Watson. A massive investment followed by chaos, inconsistency, and regression. And now it's happening again. Just 2 starts into Sanders' career, where instead of unlocking his strengths, Stefanski risks burying them under bad schemes and worse adjustments. And here's the part that should concern every Browns fan. The problems aren't limited to the offense. Penalties, special teams breakdowns, miscommunication, players out of position. These are signs of a team not being held to the standard it needs. A disciplined team reflects disciplined coaching. Cleveland hasn't looked disciplined in months. The 49ers are a great team, no doubt, but Cleveland made them look even better by setting the table for their success. And when a franchise keeps finding new ways to lose, the question isn't what went wrong this week. It's why does this keep happening? There's a strange irony in Cleveland right now. The franchise finally has something it hasn't had in years: a young quarterback who shows real promise. Yet everything around him feels unstable. Shedeur Sanders is doing his part. He's protecting the football, making smart reads, delivering accurate throws, and showing the kind of calm you rarely see in a rookie thrust into chaos. But the bigger question looming over the franchise isn't about Sanders' talent. It's about whether Cleveland is capable of developing it. We've seen this movie before. A young quarterback steps in, flashes potential, and then slowly gets chipped away by poor structure, inconsistent coaching, and a system that doesn't evolve with the player. Sanders shouldn't suffer the same fate. The kid has earned the right to grow in a system built around his strengths: tempo, timing throws, quick decision-making, and mobility. But instead, he's been dropped into a scheme that feels allergic to adaptation. And that leads to the uncomfortable question every Browns fan is whispering. Is Kevin Stefanski the right coach to develop Sanders? Because when you remove the emotion, remove the frustration, and simply look at the track record, a clear theme emerges. Stefanski's quarterbacks plateau. His offenses start strong and then stall. His adjustments come late or not at all. And now, with Sanders showing real flashes of a franchise cornerstone, the team can't afford another wasted opportunity. But the concern runs deeper than just X's and O's. When special teams fall apart, when penalties pile up, when players repeat the same mistakes week after week, that speaks to something bigger. The tone of the locker room, the urgency of preparation, the leadership guiding the team. Sanders can thrive. He can be the guy Cleveland's been searching for since 1999. But even the most talented rookie can't outrun a franchise that keeps tripping over its own feet. So as the Browns move into the next stretch of the season, the spotlight won't just be on Sanders. It'll be on the man calling his plays, shaping his growth, and determining whether his early promise becomes long-term success, or another name added to Cleveland's long list of what could have been. At the end of the day, the story of this game, and really the story of this entire Cleveland season, isn't about one bad matchup, one tough opponent, or one rookie quarterback still finding his footing. It's about a franchise locked in a cycle it can't seem to break. A cycle where young quarterbacks show flashes of brilliance, only to be crushed under the weight of poor structure, questionable coaching, and avoidable mistakes that keep piling up year after year. Shedeur Sanders didn't lose this game. He didn't sabotage the offense. He didn't collapse under pressure. He did what every coach dreams their rookie will do: protect the ball, make good decisions, deliver in key moments, and give his team a fighting chance. And Cleveland wasted it. Again. Because when you hand your opponent free points on special teams, when you stall promising drives with conservative calls, when you put your rookie in third and long purgatory, and when you ignore the strengths he built his college career on, you aren't just asking him to overcome the defense. You're asking him to overcome his own sideline. And that's a battle no rookie wins. The real tragedy in Cleveland isn't the score. It's the wasted potential. It's watching a quarterback who could be the long-awaited answer slowly get buried under the same problems that derailed the 42 quarterbacks before him. It's seeing a fan base desperate for stability, forced to watch the same mistakes week after week. And it's realizing that unless something changes, and changes soon, Sanders could become another name on the long list of Browns quarterbacks who never got a fair chance. But it doesn't have to end that way. The Browns still have time. They have a young quarterback with talent, poise, and leadership. They have emerging playmakers. They have a defense capable of competing at the highest level. What they need desperately is a coach and a system willing to grow with their quarterback instead of forcing him into a failing blueprint. Because if Cleveland keeps repeating the same patterns, they already know exactly how this story ends. And Browns fans deserve better. Sanders deserves better. The question now is whether the organization finally has the courage to change before another promising future slips away.